Chief of Police Luther Reynolds talking about the latest arrests here from a shooting that injured 5 people on King Street. Let's go ahead and take a listen in. Waiting to get underway here again. This coming just after Charleston police announced 2 arrests that were made in that shooting that injured 5 people on King Street over Labor Day weekend. Taking you now, Chief of Police Luther Reynolds talking about the latest arrests.
September 4th, about 12:55 in the morning, we had 5 people that were shot. At the time, our officers responded in a way that is just typical of our officers, courageously, heroically, and very effectively. They were in the area. They heard the shots. They were very close by. They ran in the direction of the gunfire, which is kind of amazing that we have such officers that are willing to go to the gunfire consistently, and that's what they did that night. And as they went in the direction of the gunfire, they stopped numerous people, 2 of whom were arrested that night and charged with unlawful carry of a handgun. They also, in addition to that, administered first aid, which is, again, amazing, the amount of life-saving efforts that our officers do, and that night was no different, where they put at least 1 tourniquet and other first aid supplies applied to try to help people while they were bleeding from these gunshots. We, again, today made additional arrests, and that's what I'm here to talk about. We charged a 19-year-old who was shot and injured in this event. It appears maybe have been the target of the other shooter who was arrested today, but he also had a handgun on him unlawfully and fired a shot that night. And he was struck, and when he got out of the hospital, he was charged with unlawful carry. We also charged today, and he was arrested in Dorchester County, and he tried to get away and tried to flee. Our officers and the deputy U.S. Marshals, who I can't thank enough, who have a great task force, who do a fantastic job arresting these violent offenders, which they did today in Dorchester County. And this 16-year-old was charged with 1 count of attempted murder, 1 count of a possession of a weapon used in a violent crime, 1 count of 5 counts of assault and battery of a high and aggravated nature, 1 count of unlawful carry of a weapon, and 1 count of possession of a handgun under 18 years old. There are likely more charges pending. In this arrest, 2 additional guns were recovered, and this investigation will continue. We also, I can tell you, this past weekend had an enhanced footprint in different areas, one of which was King Street, and we made several gun arrests Saturday night, and we made a gun arrest along with drug distribution on Friday night. I can tell you, while we were there on the scene making this gun arrest, the first of 3, we actually got a report from a citizen who said, "Hey, I got a report, my car got broken into, it was unlocked, and my handgun was taken." And so why do I say that in the context of this violent crime discussion, which is ongoing? I'm a supporter of the Second Amendment. I'm a supporter of guns when they're used properly and safely and responsibly. It is not responsible to leave your gun on King Street in your car unlocked and not secured, so that then that night, not only do we have another gun in the possession of the criminal element out in our community, we're now taking an officer out of service to take a report because a citizen didn't secure their weapon. And that happens all too often. So I just encourage people to be responsible gun owners. Make sure that you're securing your weapons properly, away from children. And if it's in a vehicle at night, take it in and secure it in your home at night when you're done at the end of the day. There's some really basic steps that can be taken that can prevent some of these criminal elements from having these guns in their possession. The last thing I'll say, and I've said this before, we have had too many victims of gun violence in our city. We've had a 9-year-old shot this year, a 10-year-old, a 13-year-old. We've had, I've met with mothers who have lost their children. The level of victimization, we're just blessed that we have great medical care here, but the caliber of weapons that people are using, and involvement of gangs, of drugs, of retaliation, and things like that are significant. And I would just tell you that we all have to work on this problem. We need support on the level of prosecutions, with the judges, with the courts, with scheduling these cases, and making sure that there's accountability for these offenders, every one of them. And I can't talk about a juvenile's record, but I'll tell you, juveniles also have long records in many cases. And in those cases, there's got to be accountability. We cannot unleash these guns and these repeat violent offenders on our community members. We have got to do more to make sure that we do not have these types of events in our communities.